It was 14 degrees in Denver, and I was counting Felix's breaths. 3 years old, bundled in his orange puffer coat, he'd stopped crying about 10 minutes ago. Now he just burrowed his face into my shoulder and made these small, exhausted sounds. Not scared, just cold and tired and trusting me completely to fix it. His mittens kept coming off, and I kept putting them back on until eventually we'd both given up. 3 grocery bags hung from my right wrist. My left arm held him. My phone had died somewhere between the frozen food aisle and the parking lot where my car should have been. My car wasn't there. I knew where it was. I'd watched it leave. I had been loading the trunk. Milk, bread, the specific brand of mac and cheese Felix would eat, a bag of clementines because he'd been obsessed with peeling them lately, when my mother-in-law, Gloria, appeared beside me in the King Soopers parking lot with her hand out. "Give me the key," she said, not asked, said. Brielle had a meeting with a brand sponsor, she explained. A paid collaboration. Someone was flying in from LA. The opportunity was enormous. Her own car, a 2017 Civic with a cracked bumper she'd been promising to fix for 2 years, would not photograph well in the background. She needed something that looked the part. She needed my Subaru. I said we were 10 minutes from home. I said Felix was already cold. I said we could figure something else out. Gloria smiled the specific smile she used when she wanted to remind me that accommodation was my job. "It's 20 minutes round trip, Ivy. You can get an Uber. Stop making everything so dramatic." She took the keys from beside the grocery bags, handed them to Brielle, and got in the passenger seat. Brielle waved at me through the window as she backed out. They didn't call an Uber for me. They didn't offer cab fare. They just drove my car out of the parking lot on a 14-degree Tuesday, and I stood there with 3 bags and a toddler and a dead phone and no plan. I started walking. What else was I going to do? We made it about 6 blocks before I heard the horn. A gray Chevy Silverado pulled to the curb and the window rolled down, and there was my brother Aaron. He was in his work jacket, the one with the Hartley HVAC logo on the chest. The commercial refrigeration company he'd built from nothing over 8 years. His jaw was set in a way I hadn't seen since our dad's funeral. He didn't ask questions. He got out, lifted Felix from my arms, and buckled him into the back seat with a calm, practiced efficiency that told me he was managing something very carefully. He cranked the heat to maximum. He handed Felix a granola bar from the console without looking. Then he pulled into traffic, and we drove in silence for about 40 seconds before he said, "Who has your car?" His mom took it. For Brielle, she had a meeting. What kind of meeting? A sponsored post thing. She needed a car that photographed better than her Civic. Aaron didn't respond. He merged onto Colfax with a stillness that reminded me of the way pressure builds before a pipe bursts. "It's not a big deal," I said. "It's 14 degrees. I know what temperature it is. You were walking 6 blocks with a 3-year-old in 14 degrees with no phone." "Aaron, where are they now?" I told him the address. Our house, the 3-bedroom Tudor on Glencoe Street, that my husband, Mason, was always telling people he'd rented from a property management group, the way he said it making sure everyone in the room understood he was the kind of man who could afford $2,800 a month in Denver's market. Aaron took a left on Colorado Boulevard. He didn't say anything else. We pulled up to the house and my Subaru was in the driveway, trunk still open. Gloria and Brielle were carrying bags inside. Not groceries, garment bags. A flat box from a boutique on Larimer Street, 2 paper bags from the kind of restaurant that charges $22 for a sandwich. The meeting must have gone well. Aaron didn't park on the street. He pulled the Silverado straight across the bottom of the driveway, blocking them in. He cut the engine. Gloria looked up. She saw the truck. She saw me in the passenger seat. Her expression didn't move toward guilt. It moved toward inconvenience. She said, walking toward us with that particular warmth she used like a weapon, "What a surprise. You're blocking us in." "I know." He walked to the back of my car and held out his hand keys. Gloria laughed, short, incredulous. "We just borrowed it. Brielle had an important meeting and Ivy's car presents better on camera than that Civic. You know how content creation works. Appearance is the product. Keys. We're family. We share things. That's what families do." "That's not your car." Aaron's voice hadn't changed. He still sounded like a man reading a utility bill. "That's not your call. Keys." The front door opened and Mason stepped out. He was in his work-from-home uniform, the gray Patagonia zip-up, joggers, slides. Looking irritated by the noise, he saw me. He saw the truck blocking the driveway. He pinched the bridge of his nose. "Aaron," he stepped off the porch. "Come on, man. You know the HOA rules about commercial vehicles. You're going to get us fined." He was worried about the HOA fine. I had been walking in 14-degree weather with our son. Aaron looked at Mason for a long moment. Then he turned back to Gloria. "Last time I'm asking." Gloria sighed with the theatrical patience of someone who considers herself the most reasonable person in any room. She dug through her purse, slow and pointed, and dropped the fob into Aaron's palm. "There, happy? You're being incredibly dramatic over a borrowed car. Brielle's career matters too. Not everyone has a husband who provides. Aaron tossed me the keys. Get Felix, we're going. She can't just leave, Mason said. He stepped closer, and I could see him assembling a speech in real time. Something about dinner, schedules, how I was embarrassing him in his own neighborhood. Ivy, we have people coming over tonight. You haven't even started. Figure out dinner yourself, Aaron said. Flat, certain, like math. She's done. Mason's face went a color I'd never seen on him before. You don't get to come to my house and tell my wife. Your house. Aaron nodded slowly, like he was filing something away. Right. He got in the truck. I buckled Felix into my Subaru. In the rearview mirror, I watched Mason gesturing at Aaron's bumper, still talking. Gloria stood at the foot of the driveway with her arms crossed. The look on her face was the same one she'd been wearing for 3 years every time I didn't immediately agree with her. Not anger, just the mild impatience of someone who assumes the inconvenience will correct itself. I put the car in drive. I didn't know yet that I would never sleep in that house again as Mason's wife. Aaron's office was a converted warehouse in Reno, in a block that had stayed the same for 40 years while everything around it turned into cocktail bars and mural installations. It smelled like machine oil and the industrial cleaner he used on the shop floor. I had always found it reassuring, functional, honest. He made Felix hot chocolate from the break room machine and set him up with a tablet and headphones in the conference room. Then he sat across from me at the long folding table and looked at me the way only people who've known you your whole life can. Not angry, not sad, just paying full attention. How long, he said. Aaron, how long has she been taking your things? I looked at the scratch marks on the table surface, years of blueprints and job contracts worn into the laminate. It started small. First year it was little stuff. Using my skincare products without asking. Finishing groceries I'd bought. Lending money and never mentioning it again. Then Brielle needed things. A website. Camera equipment. Then her landlord was being difficult and could she please stay in the spare room for just a few months? I paused. That was 14 months ago. Aaron was quiet. Mason thinks he's providing for me, I continued. He talks about it constantly. He pays the rent, he handles the bills, he tells everyone at every dinner party that he takes care of his family. He says it to me whenever I bring up money. I pay the rent, Ivy. I handle everything. Your job is to take care of Felix and keep things running. What he means is keep his mother comfortable, give Brielle whatever she needs, make yourself small so he can feel large. And you let him. It wasn't an accusation. He wanted to understand the shape of it. I was trained to, I said. Gloria sat me down 3 weeks after our wedding. She told me that women who chase independence end up alone. She said a good marriage works because one person leads and one person supports. And support isn't weakness, it's knowing your role. I heard how hollow that sounded coming out of my own mouth. I believed her, or I wanted to, because the alternative was admitting I'd walked into something I didn't know how to walk out of. Aaron leaned forward. Who does Mason pay rent to? A property management company, Ridgeline Holdings. And what do you know about them? I opened my work bag, the one I always had with me because I was always finishing a project somewhere, always fitting in an hour of work between pickups and appointments. I pulled out my laptop, more than he does. I logged in. Aaron watched me navigate to the administrative portal. He watched me pull up the ownership registration for Ridgeline Holdings, LLC. I turned the screen around. He leaned in, he read it, he looked at me, he read it again. Ivy, he said quietly. My grandmother left me money when she passed. 4 years ago. I'd been watching Mason's family long enough by then to know what they'd do with it if they found out I had it. So I didn't tell anyone. I bought the house outright through the LLC, registered everything under the company name, and hired a management firm to handle the paperwork. Mason signed a lease with Ridgeline Holdings the year we moved in. He has been paying me rent every single month for 4 years and he does not know it. Aaron sat back. $2,800 a month, I said, straight into a college fund for Felix. He was quiet for a moment, then a slow exhale through his nose. He's been walking around telling people he pays rent to you. To me, I pulled up the ledger. 47 deposits. He hands the check to me every month and asks me to make sure it gets mailed. I mail it to myself. Aaron made a sound I'd never heard from him. Half law, half something that didn't have a name. They just told you to get out, he said. They did. They tried to evict you from your own house. They did. He stood up, walked to the window, stood there a moment, came back. Okay, I know a real estate attorney who owes me a favor. We're going to. My phone lit up on the table between us. 14 text messages from Mason. The screen kept updating as I watched. Where are you? Mom is upset. This is embarrassing. Brielle missed part of her call because of you. You're being incredibly selfish. I need you back here, Ivy responded. If you're not back by 7, don't bother coming home. I'm calling a locksmith. Then the voicemail notification. I put it on speaker. Ivy. Mason's voice was the tight, controlled version, The one he used when he was trying to sound calm and could not quite get there. You've made your point, I get it. Aaron came over and you wanted an audience. But you have responsibilities here. Mom is upset. Brielle's brand deal almost fell apart because of the disruption you caused. If you're not back by 7 with dinner on the table, don't bother. I'm having the locks changed. You can figure out where you and Felix are sleeping tonight. The voicemail ended. The office was very quiet. He's going to change the locks, I said slowly, on my house. Aaron looked at me, checked the accounts. The dread arrived before I even opened the browser. Something cold that started at the base of my skull and spread. I pulled up the joint checking account, the one I maintained for household groceries and utilities, the one I'd always kept intentionally modest, so Mason never questioned why I didn't seem to have much. He liked me looking slightly dependent. It made him feel necessary. The balance was $200. Yesterday it had been $2,400. One transaction. Timestamp 2 hours ago, right around the time Aaron's truck had blocked the driveway. Transfer to G. Whitmore, 2,181. Gloria's last name. She drained it, I said. The second she saw trouble coming, she transferred everything out. Aaron's expression didn't change. Keep going. My hands had gone cold. I opened my email, searched for credit, searched for new account. There it was. A notification from a credit monitoring service I'd set up years ago and mostly forgotten about. Dated 9 days ago. I hadn't opened it. I was always so busy. I clicked. New trade line added. Auto loaner, Frontier Financial Services. Vehicle 2024 BMW 430i Grand Coupe. Loan amount $58,400. Monthly payment $890. Borrower Ivy Christine Hartley. I had never been inside a BMW dealership. I stared at the screen. I verified my identity. The loan documents loaded and I saw my name, my social security number, my credit history all correct. The billing address was listed as 771 Sycamore Lane, Unit B. Brielle's apartment. Aaron. My voice came out flat. Look at this. He came around the table. We looked at it together for a moment. The car she drove to her meeting today, he said. Silver, something unfamiliar. I thought she'd borrowed a friend's car. She financed a $58,000 BMW in your name. Aaron straightened up. The controlled quality in his voice had gone very still, like water just before it freezes solid. That's not borrowing your car, Ivy. That's not a family dispute. That is a felony. I looked at the number. $58,400. They had watched me clip coupons and use cashback apps and buy store-brand cereal. And in that same season, they had put a $58,000 auto loan on my credit report and driven the car to a brand partnership meeting. They hadn't wanted to shrink me. They had decided I was a resource to be drawn down. Something shifted in my chest. Not anger, something colder and more deliberate than anger. The feeling of a decision completing itself, a door closing from the inside. Mason said he's calling a locksmith, I said. I heard my own voice from a slight distance. He's going to change the locks on my house. Let him try. Aaron was already on his phone. You call the police. I'll call the attorney. I called Denver PD's non-emergency line. I reported an auto loan opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. The officer on duty took my information calmly, issued a case number, and told me a detective would follow up within 48 hours. I hung up. I didn't call Mason. I didn't respond to any of the texts. I opened the administrative portal for Ridgeline Holdings and pulled up the lease agreement Mason had signed 4 years ago, the one he'd told his friends he'd negotiated down by $200, bragging about it for weeks. He hadn't negotiated anything. I'd offered the reduction because it was my house and I could do whatever I wanted with it. I scrolled to Section 19. Grounds for immediate lease termination include, but are not limited to, criminal activity committed on the premises by the tenant or any person authorized by the tenant to occupy or access the property, or any criminal activity committed by the tenant or tenant's household members against the property owner or their interests. I had a police case number in my open notepad. I opened a new document. I typed the date. I typed the address. I typed Notice of Immediate Lease Termination. I filled in the details. I cited the lease section. I included the police case number. I kept it clean and formal the way my grandmother's attorney had always handled paperwork. No emotion, no flourish, just the facts arranged in the order that made them irrefutable. I didn't sign it as Ivy. I signed it as Hartley Property Manager Ridgeline Holdings LLC. The printer hummed to life. The sound of it, mechanical, indifferent, final, was the most satisfying thing I had heard in 4 years. Aaron set a cup of coffee beside me without being asked. Ready, he said. Give me a few minutes with Felix. I sat with my son in the break room while he finished his hot chocolate. He showed me a cartoon on the tablet, narrating the plot for me with complete seriousness, stopping to make sure I was following the important parts. I listened. I smoothed his hair back. He smelled like cold air and granola bar, and the specific warmth of a child who is not worried because you are there. I thought, You are never going to stand in a frozen parking lot again because someone decided you didn't need your own car. I kissed his forehead. I told Aaron I was ready. We drove back to my house. Every light was on. Through the front window, I could see Gloria on the couch with a glass of red wine, completely at ease. Brielle was at the kitchen island with her phone, the keys to the silver BMW sitting on the counter in front of her like a trophy. Mason was somewhere in the back. They had threatened to lock me out. They were in my living room drinking wine I had paid for. Aaron handed me the folder. He asked if I wanted him to come in. I've got it, I said. I pulled the master key from my bag, the one the management firm had given me 4 years ago as the verified property owner, the one I'd kept in the zippered interior pocket of my work bag without ever needing it. Tonight I needed it. I unlocked the front door and walked in without knocking. The room froze the way rooms do when something shifts without warning, before anyone understands what has shifted. Gloria's head came up. Brielle's thumb stopped on her phone. How did you get in? Brielle said. Mason called a locksmith. He did, I said. The locksmith called Ridgeline Holdings for owner authorization before touching the locks. Ridgeline Holdings said no. Mason appeared in the hallway, still in his zip-up, still wearing the expression of a man who assumes confusion is temporary and will resolve in his favor. He looked at the folder. I opened it. You're being evicted, I said. All 3 of you, effective immediately. Mason laughed, the short performative version he used when he needed to appear unbothered. Ivy, this is... Read it. He picked up the termination notice. Read the heading. Read the lease section citation. Stopped at the signature. He read it twice. I am Ridgeline Holdings, I said. I have been for 4 years. I bought this house with money my grandmother left me, put it in an LLC, hired a management company to process the lease. You have paid me $2,800 a month for 47 months. I placed the deed on the table beside the notice. You have been paying your own wife rent and telling dinner party guests it made you the provider. The color left Mason's face all at once. Gloria stood up. This is insane. You can't possibly. I placed the 3rd document on the table. The credit report, the loan details, the BMW registration with Brielle's address as the billing address. Your daughter opened a $58,400 auto loan in my name 9 days ago, I said. I filed a police report this evening. The case number is on the last page. Complete silence. Then Gloria did what I should have predicted above all else, because it was so perfectly, precisely her. She picked up her wine glass and threw it against the wall behind me. Then she grabbed her own forearm and dragged her fingernails down it, 4 long red lines appearing immediately on her skin. She started crying, loud, immediate, fully formed, and screamed that I had attacked her, that I had hit her, that someone needed to call 911 right now. I pointed at the corner near the bookshelf. The small black disc I'd installed 2 years ago after my laptop disappeared for 4 days and came back with the hard drive wiped. That camera has been active since February of 2023, I said. Audio and video. Everything from the last 15 minutes is uploading to a cloud server right now. Gloria looked at the camera. She looked at her own hand. The crying stopped. When the police arrived, responding to Gloria's own 911 call, they requested the footage. I pulled it up on my phone. 2 officers watched approximately 5 minutes of it in the front hallway while Gloria sat on my couch and Brielle stared at the BMW keys on the counter. Then one officer asked Gloria to stand up and put her hands behind her back. It wasn't dramatic. It was just paperwork becoming consequence. Brielle started explaining rapidly that she hadn't understood what she was signing, that her mother had arranged everything, that she'd only done what she was told. The detective who arrived with the patrol officers wrote everything down with the same expression he'd probably worn writing traffic citations. Thorough, unimpressed. Mason stood in the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed and his face doing something I didn't have a name for. Not guilty. Not sorry. Just recalibrating, running calculations about which version of events left him in the best position. After Gloria had been walked out, I asked Mason to leave. His lease had been terminated. He was technically trespassing. He started to say something. The officer near the door looked at him. He stopped and picked up his laptop bag, his phone charger, his car keys. At the door, he turned. Evie, we can talk about this. We can figure out a way to. My attorney's contact is in the termination folder, I said. All future communication goes through her. He left. Aaron rekeyed the locks from outside while I sat on the kitchen floor with Felix, who had fallen asleep in the car on the way over and was now awake again and demanding to know where his toy dog was, why there had been police cars, and whether we were eating dinner here or somewhere else. Here, I said. We're eating here. Because it's our house. I looked at him. 3 years old, orange puffer coat still on because he hadn't wanted to take it off. A half-eaten clementine in his jacket pocket from something he'd started in the car and then abandoned the way 3-year-olds do. Because it's our house, I said. Felix went to sleep in his own bed at 8 o'clock. The house settled into a quiet I hadn't felt inside it in years. Not tense quiet, not waiting quiet, but the sound of a space that belonged to the people inside it. Mason's last message came in around 10:30. I just want to understand how any of this is fair. I read it once. I thought about 14 degrees. I thought about Felix's mittens in my coat pocket and my dead phone and 6 blocks of ice-covered sidewalk while his mother drove away in my car. I typed back, "Contact my attorney." Then I blocked the number. I stood at the kitchen window with a cup of tea and watched the street. The silver BMW sat at the curb. It would be impounded in the morning as part of the fraud investigation. The house was warm. The deed was in my laptop bag where it had always been, quiet and patient, waiting for exactly this. Mason had spent 4 years telling everyone he was the one holding things together. He signed the checks. He paid the bills. He provided the roof. He said it so many times, and in so many rooms that he stopped questioning whether the story was true. He never once thought to ask whose name was on the deed. I didn't lose a marriage. I dissolved a transaction.